Everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's a new day, also a new episode entitled Is Psychology a Real Science? However, before we start, I want to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Kate V. Vasquez, a second year college student who's studying Bachelor of Science in Psychology at the Sarasota University. Without further ado, let's start. Is there an instance that you ask yourself or you're confused of what's really the nature of psychology is? Is it philosophical or scientific? Honestly, this question also makes me wonder, is psychology a real science? But before that, we must define what psychology is. According to Ohio State University, psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. It actively involved in studying and understanding mental processes, brain functions, and behavior. The field of psychology is considered a hub science with strong connections to the mental science, medical sciences, social sciences, and education. From word itself, scientific study, psychology follows scientific method which made it science in nature. Going back to the history of psychology, psychology is relatively young science with its experimental roots in the 19th century, compared for example to human physiology, which date much earlier. As mentioned, anyone interested in exploring issues related to the mind generally did so in philosophical context prior to 19th century. Two men working in the 19th century are generally credited as being the founders of psychology, as the science and academic discipline that was distinct from philosophy. Their names were Wilhelm Wundt and William James. This section will provide an overview of these shifts in paradigms that have influenced psychology from Wundt and James through today. Before the time of Wundt and James, questions about the mind were considered by philosophers. However, both Wundt and James helped create psychology as distinct scientific discipline. Wundt was a structuralist, which meant he believed that our cognitive experience was best understood by breaking that experience into its component parts. He thought this was best accomplished by introspection. William James was the first American psychologist and he was a proponent of functionalism. This particular perspective focused on how mental activities serve as adaptive responses to an organism's environment. Like Wundt, James also relied on introspection. However, his research approach also incorporated more objective measures as well. While Sigmund Freud believed that understanding the unconscious mind was absolutely critical to understand conscious behavior. This was especially true for individuals that he saw who suffered from various hysterias and neuroses. Freud relied on dream analysis, slips of the tongue, and free association as means to access the unconscious. Psychoanalytic theory remained the dominant force in clinical psychology for several decades. Gestalt psychology was very influential in Europe. Gestalt psychology takes a holistic view of an individual and his experiences as the Nazis came to power in Germany. Wertheimer, Kafka, and Kohler immigrated to the United States. Although they left their laboratories and their research behind, they did introduce America to Gestalt idea. Some of the principles of Gestalt psychology are still very influential in the study of sensation and perception. One of the most influential schools of thought within psychology history was behaviorism. Behaviorism focused on making psychology an objective science by studying overt behavior and emphasizing the importance of unobservable mental processes. John Watson is often considered the father of behaviorism, and B.F. Skinner's contribution to our understanding of principles of operant conditioning cannot be underestimated, as behaviorism and psychoanalytic theory took hold of so many aspects of psychology. Some began to become dissatisfied with psychology pictures of human nature. Thus, a humanistic movement within psychology began to take hold. Humanism focuses on the potential of all people for good. Both Maslow and Rogers were influential in shaping humanistic psychology. During the 1950s, the landscape of psychology began to change. A science of behavior began to shift back to its roots and focus on mental processes. The emergence of neuroscience and computer science aided this transition. Ultimately, the, cogni- the cognitive revolution took hold, and people came to realize that cognition was crucial to a true appreciation and understanding of behavior. Ultimately, the cognitive revolution took hold, and people came to realize that cognition was crucial to a true appreciation and understanding of behavior. Psychology has continued to evolve since 1960, and new ideas and perspectives have been introduced. Recent research in psychology looks at many aspects of the human experience, from the biological influence of behavior on the impact of social and cultural factors. Today, the majority of psychologists do not identify themselves with a single school of thought. Instead, they often focus on a particular specialty area or perspective, often drawing on ideas from a range of theoretical backgrounds. This eclectic approach has contributed new ideas and theories that will continue to shape psychology for years to come. To answer that question of this episode, is psychology a real science? Yes, it is. Psychology evolves over time, and many experts or psychologists proves that it's not a philosophy, but a science itself. I hope that you learned something. See you on the next video. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.